The following podcast is an exclusive presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Thank you for coming to the Project Entertainment Network store. Please place your order. A good choice. A t-shirt for the horror show with Brian Keene. Amanda Method coffee mug. There's more. A Necrocast on hoodie. That's sharp. But why on earth would you want bizonged leggings? Wait, are you Mr. Frank? The Project Entertainment Network store, stacked with goodies from all your favorite podcasts. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs and more. www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
There shall come a podcast like no other. Defenders Dialogue with Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Marvel Comics' original superhero non-team convenes once again. The Incredible Hulk, the Savage Submariner, the Master of the Mystic Arts, Doctor Strange, and a dynamic supporting cast of Marvel superheroes battle against evil as the Defenders. Without further ado, true believers, here's your hosts, Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Excelsior!
And welcome back once again, true believers, to Defenders Dialogue. I'm Brian Keene.
And I am Christopher Golden, Brian. And Excelsior, true believers. And I say true believers with a little extra emphasis today, Brian, because we're not only doing the Defenders today, we're also doing Captain America number 268.
That's right. This week's show, Captain America 268 and Defenders issues 106 and 107, a good old-fashioned Marvel Comics crossover. I don't think we've had that in the Defenders since the Avengers-Defenders War.
Yeah, and what's great about this is you never know who's going to show up in these issues. We're getting to that. I feel like DeMatteis is really making the non-team thing work here in this story, because you have Daredevil back, you have the Beast, you have Captain America. It's a great. A great iteration of that non-team concept.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Captain America 268, we should point out, it's written by J.M. DeMatteis.
Yes.
So the crossover is very easy for him. Pencils are by another of my favorites from that era, Mike Zeck.
Yeah.
God, I'd forgotten just how much I loved his stuff until I went back and reread this.
Yeah, classic comics creator.
Do you remember his Captain America cover with Deathlock?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's that should be a t-shirt.
Yeah, Deathlock is a character that has never quite gotten his due. They've tried to bring him back a number of times. The Dwayne McDuffie run was great, but it's just not. It's a concept they need to figure out. I mean, this is the thing that I don't get is there are certain characters that are so great and unique in the Marvel universe. That if you could just crack it, you could have another hit, Well,
the concept is simple. He's a soldier who burned out on war, has become a pacifist, and he's trapped inside a killing machine.
Right. Yeah.
How can you not write that?
Yeah, no, it's great stuff. I mean, so yes. In fact, that sounds like a Brian Keene series if I've ever heard one. I know people listening to this.
We got a lot of listeners inside New Marvel. I don't know if new editor-in-chief CB Cebulski is one of those, but CB, I'm right here. If you'd answer one of my fucking emails once in a while, we can make this happen.
What's funny is I feel like every week we're coming up with some other thing that I think we should do, or you should do, or Cullen Bunn should do.
Cullen will end up doing it.
Cullen, which is totally fine.
It is.
But sorry, I don't know. I've got some allergies or something today. But anyway, this is not the Pitch Marvel series. I don't know why we keep doing this. It's just like I think we're just so excited about this stuff that I think, yeah, you should do that, Brian.
I think re-immersing ourselves in the era of Marvel Comics that we loved. Every week, re-immersing ourselves in that era, I think it spawns creativity.
It does. Well, it also ignites that enthusiasm.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we're both persona non grata at Marvel these days.
Well, we'll see.
All right, so Captain America 268. if you remember on last week's episode, Gargoyle, Hellcat, Valkyrie, and Kyle Richmond were knocked out by some mysterious government agents. Captain America 268 opens with our defenders in a room where these men dressed like Roman centurions are picking up their still unconscious forms, carrying them into another room, and as Kyle Richmond slowly regains consciousness, he finds out who is behind this sinister plot.
And it's our old friend August Masters.
That's right.
Who again has turned out to not just be some creepy guy in a suit, has turned out to be kind of a potential long-term nemesis for the Defenders.
Which, respectfully, we warned you would happen when he made his first appearance here in the pages of the Defenders.
And, what's also interesting about this is, again, I mentioned it last week and probably the week before, but it comes back to the idea that this is a story that will continue to lurk in the back of the Defenders with all of its personnel changes, both creatively and character-wise, until the end of the series, really.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's interesting. Anyway, we find out that August Masters invented the whole thing about the CID, the covert American government agency. He reveals to Kyle Richmond that there's no such agency as the CID. So now we don't know what the mysterious organization that he works for is. However, what we do know is they have a lot of pull, they have a lot of personnel, they have a lot of shady guys who pretend to be government agents, and something is clearly going on.
That's right. Maybe it's the deep state that Donald Trump was always warning us about.
Oh boy. This podcast, and this is me saying it, needs to remain a Trump-free zone.
Oh no, I agree. It should be a politically free zone, but you and I both know politics are going to come up in this story arc.
I know, that's true. That's true.
Speaking of politics, we then switch, because remember, this isn't a Defender's book. It's Captain America's book. We switch to Steve Rogers himself. At the time, this was the 80s, and while our millennial listeners may know Captain America's love interest is Sharon Carter, at the time, it was a young woman named Bernie Rosenthal.
Yeah, what's really interesting to me about this is actually the era where I think I liked Cap best, because we got to a point, not just in Captain America, but in most comics, most Marvel comics and DC comics, where we stopped seeing their personal lives. We stopped seeing them try to have a life. So eventually he became Captain America, an Avenger, 24/7, 365. And this was great because he's working as a freelance artist, an illustrator, and he lives in Greenwich Village, and he's out with Bernie Rosenthal, and they've just gone to see Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they're having, he's having a life, and that's the thing I sort of appreciate the most about the Defenders as a series and that era as a whole, is you got to see more of who they are as people and not just be superheroes all the time.
That's right. And they get home, their date is over. Steve comes home. He's getting ready to do some work, not Captain America work, but Steve Rogers work. And then he gets possessed or knocked out or something by some mysterious force, causes him to grab his head in pain. Captain America, this man of steel, is lying on the floor, twitching, whimpering. And then it ends.
Well, I'm going to back up and say,
okay.
You've skipped the best moment of this issue, because it's the classic moment that happens in so many movies and TV shows, and not usually in the comics, because you have the moment where Bernie and Steve have been getting much more serious in their relationship, and he says something he's concerned about. The violence in the movies, and he's thinking about the movies he saw when he was a kid and how characters seem so amoral now. And then he says, I'm concerned about the children who will be seeing this film and taking that man, meaning Indiana Jones, as their hero. And she says, you are so old-fashioned. I think that's why I love you. And then there's the moment in the aftermath of her speaking those words, a panel with no dialogue but with captions. They're both startled by her words. And then Steve Rogers says, well, where would you like to eat? Want to drive down to Sheepshead Bay for some fish? Steve, didn't you hear what I just said? I love you. And I care about you too, Bertie, very much. Oh, man. I laughed reading this because it's not something you typically see in a Captain America story or a Defender story. But anyway, yes, Steve goes home. He has this psychic attack or whatever happens. His friends come in to try to help him, and he says, no, that wasn't a nightmare. Once they're gone, he says, that was a call for help, and I think I know who sent it.
That's right. And then he turns into Captain America and gets on the Captain America motorcycle, which, it was nice to see that.
Me too.
Remember when he used to ride around a motorcycle?
Yep.
And
I remember Reb Brown riding out of the back of a van on the Captain America motorcycle in the horrible TV version.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God, I'd forgotten about that.
We
then get a flashback here, and it's not something that we've ever covered on Defenders Dialogue, and it impacts the story. You want to tell folks about that?
Well, it's the flashback involves Captain America and the Falcon. It's kind of a weird. So it's about restructuring reality. So I don't know. Like, I didn't read Cap during this era. So I think
I read it. I can recap.
Okay, I was just saying we can sum it up pretty easily, but go ahead.
Basically, there's this billionaire. Like I said, we're going to try to keep the politics out of it, but there's this very conservative billionaire named Morgan McNeil Hardy. Okay, and he financed a machine that using people with psychic powers could restructure reality to fit his own concept of morality. Basically, think of the Red Skull with the Cosmic Cube, or if you're a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan, what do they call it? The Tesseract.
The Tesseract, right.
The Red Skull wanted to use the cube to bring about the Fourth Reich. Hardy just wanted to bring about a conservative Christian, predominantly white reality.
He wanted to bring about The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, basically, yeah, exactly it. Now, Cap stopped him along with the help of some of the telepaths that Hardy had used.
Right.
I'm
going to interrupt for 1 second, Brian, and say this is the key element here, right? It's the connective tissue. I didn't read. What I meant to say is I didn't read Cap regularly in this era, but I read enough of it to connect all of this Defender stuff. But yeah, it's the idea of the psychics that's the continuity, and I wonder if DeMatteis had read those stories originally. But go ahead.
No, I believe he probably did. But yeah, two of the main telepaths, Ursula Richards and a little boy named Philip Legeen. Ursula Legeen, that's not lost on me. Was it lost on you?
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Although, is that how you pronounce it? I always thought it was Le Guin, but
it might be Le Guin.
Whatever it is.
I still call Bracken McLeod just because it amuses me to do so. But yeah, basically Cap suspects that this psychic message he got that incapacitated him was actually sent by Ursula.
Yeah. So after the events that he had with the Avengers, with this whole, all these psychics, Philip and Ursula were the only survivors. He brought them to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s ESP division, and
yep.
That they had their psychic abilities increased by prolonged contact to the psi augmenter, which is sort of like Nether Trident in my Defenders dialogue. But in any case, yes. So he goes and he sees that yes, indeed, that both Ursula and Philip have been abducted by someone.
That's right. He then goes to S.H.I.E.L.D. because S.H.I.E.L.D. was still very active back in the 80s. And it's nice to see one of my favorite S.H.I.E.L.D. characters, Dum Dugan.
How could you not love Dum Dum Dugan? Dum Dum Dugan is a character that needs to come back. I mean, this is
I agree. He's one of my all-time favorite Marvel characters. I have such fond memories of Marvel's Godzilla comic book series, which was Godzilla, but it was set in the Marvel universe, and every issue was Dum Dum Dugan
trying to catch Godzilla. Yeah. No, that's a series people don't really know that, but you know what, Brian? That should be one of the things we do on this show.
Godzilla?
Yep, the Marvel Godzilla.
Hell yeah. And it's all collected in one essential volume, too.
Yep. I actually have the comics, but yes, it is collected as the essential. We should definitely do that because most people don't know it exists and they're not aware that it's S.H.I.E.L.D. and Fantastic Four and the Avengers and versus Godzilla and Godzilla getting shrunken down and fighting a rat in a sewer in Manhattan,
Yep.
It's classic 70s Marvel if there ever was one. But anyway, back to Dum Dum Dugan, longtime sidekick of Nick Fury and the former director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Anyway, it's Sharon Carter. It's Dum Dum Dugan.
No, it's Runsider.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
She looks like Sharon, but yeah, she was Marvel's 70s and 80s attempt at the women's liberation movement within S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent Runsider.
Okay,
sorry. That's her name. Yeah, she looks just like Sharon Carter.
The outfit is the outfit that later is worn regularly by Sharon Carter. But anyway.
Exactly.
All right, so we go back to Kyle Richmond. In the clutches of August Masters, the other defenders are being held by this organization. Should we just start calling the organization by the name that we know it as eventually?
I think we should
to make it simple.
Go ahead.
All right, so it's the Secret Empire. Reveal.
It's the Secret Empire, and Masters explains to Kyle that their ranks are composed of people who used to be with the CIA. Along with former operatives for the FBI, S.H.I.E.L.D., etc. So, in fact, the Secret Empire is
the Deep State. Yeah, it actually is the Deep State. I mean,
yep.
In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if the people who talk about the Deep State got their inspiration from 1980s comic books. But anyway, that's a whole other. Alex Jones should read Captain America number 268. Anyway, so Mindy, Kyle Richmond's ex, who has a very complicated relationship with him and psychic abilities and a lot of psychotic breaks. They've brought Kyle in to inspire her to do the work that they need her to do. He's supposed to placate her until 0 hour so that her mind does not go crazy and kill a bunch of people. And then he's going to do that because otherwise Hellcat, Valkyrie, and Gargoyle will be killed.
Right.
So they're gearing up for World War III.
That's right. Basically, they're going to take care of America's enemies before those enemies take care of America. They don't think that the government's doing a good enough job protecting our country, so they're going to do it themselves by instigating World War III.
Yeah. I think we then
switch.
Can we just sum up these 2 pages?
Yeah, Cap goes to the Colorado Rockies, where the Secret Empire's headquarters is located underground, and he's sniffing around trying to find them, and sure enough, he finds them.
Yeah, he goes undercover in a Mission Impossible mask, basically. Yes, and sure enough, he finds them. Of course he does. And when he goes in, we find that once again, unfortunately, Philip and Ursula are amongst a group of psychics who are strapped into a machine to tap into their psychic abilities. Now, interestingly enough, by the way, we would later see S.H.I.E.L.D. doing the exact same stuff.
Exactly.
In the name of what they perceived as good, essentially keeping psychics, almost captive and enslaved and using their minds like this. So,
yep. Philip and Ursula wake up the other defenders. They send a psychic message to Gargoyle, Valkyrie, and Hellcat, wake them up, explain what's going on, and the defenders finally spring into action and break out of their prison cell.
And then what's interesting is we have this thing where Masters and his guards are walking Cap down the hallway, and Masters is doing his James Bond villain spiel. He's like giving it, because somehow Masters thinks that maybe if he explains this well enough, Captain America will see the wisdom of it and join him.
Well, that's what I love about August Masters. This is a villain who genuinely believes in what he's doing. He doesn't see himself as the villain. He sees himself as the good guy.
Right. I mean, he's saying to Cap, we were interested in finding resilient telepaths so we could launch a full-scale psychic attack against the USSR. And again, he's basically saying to Cap, isn't this great? And then he says, as you know, Captain, the Soviets are the major blockage to a lasting world peace. With their threat removed, America can rise up and unify the Earth. So basically, we're going to conquer the world.
Yep.
And that's
again,
enough.
Chris, I know we said we're not going to get into politics.
Yeah.
But, you're one of my best friends. In my private life, I've spoken inside CIA headquarters, Langley, several times. I know people in every one of these government organizations. I know people who think like this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me clarify. I'm not saying every person I've ever met who works for the federal government thinks this way, but I have met people who think this way. And they don't see anything wrong with it either. That's why I love what DeMatteis has done here with August Masters. This is a true believer in every sense of the word, He's a twisted lunatic, as Cap points out to him in the next panel.
Points out to him with a fist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Cap punched a Nazi?
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Look at that. Cap punching Nazis. Not that we're recommending that you punch Nazis, folks, but we are. Anyway. There's an alarm that goes off because the defenders have escaped. It gives Cap a moment. He realizes, hey, if the defenders are trying to escape, it's a perfect time for him to attack all of these soldiers dressed as Roman centurions. He makes short work of them and ends up meeting up with the defenders. Conveniently, he says, I know the way to the tunnel out of here. You defenders get these people to safety. Put a call into Nick Fury or Dum Dum at S.H.I.E.L.D. I'll see what I can do to shut this operation down in the meantime. So they've freed the psychics. They're fighting the Centurions, trying to get the psychics out. But Cap has gone back to deal with August Masters. And August Masters basically says, they're all going to die if you don't surrender, which actually causes Captain America, of course, and the Defenders to surrender.
That's right. Cap and the Defenders stand down. The psychics are being led back to their chamber. But there's one psychic Masters forgot about, because as Kyle is standing there thinking, if only I could contact Doctor Strange, but how? Mindy picks up on the thought, and she sends a telepathic summons to Doctor Strange.
Which leads us right into Defenders, number 106, with a great cover.
Fantastic cover.
Yep. Great cover with some kind of sphere prison that's holding Gargoyle, Hellcat, Cap, and Valkyrie, and outside it, Daredevil is unconscious on the floor. Doctor Strange is on his knees, defeated. The Beast is leaping, trying to rescue. The Roman Centurions are around. And up in the upper left-hand corner, we see an interesting array of characters. This is one thing I wanted to point out, by the way. In this era, you always had that corner box.
Right.
You would see either the main character, if it was Thor, or you'd see in a team book the heads of various members of the team. And we've mentioned before, various Defenders have appeared there. I could go back and look, but I think this might be the only issue in which the four heads we see are Doctor Strange, the Beast, Daredevil, and Son of Satan.
Absolutely it is, yep.
That right there defines the non-team aspect of the Defenders.
Absolutely.
That's a weird group. Anyway.
So we open, we open with the same creative team as always, and Doctor Strange.
Whoa, let me back up. We don't open with the same creative team as always. We have DeMatteis on the script.
Oh no, you're right. I'm sorry.
And we have a quintet of artists. We have Don Perlin. We have, I can't remember Trapani's first name, Rick Magyar, Jack Abel, and Al Milgrom, all on art. So it's a potpourri of classic 80s Marvel artists.
And Doctor Strange is on the receiving end of Mindy's plea for help.
And it's painful, but full of information. So on that first page, we see Doctor Strange getting the message, and he gets she downloads it all into his brain, and he's yelling in pain, but Wong comes running, and Doctor Strange actually passes out. And then Doctor Strange is able to explain to Wong about the warning he received, that the Defenders are in danger, and he sent an astral call for help that even now is being answered.
The other Defenders.
Go ahead. Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry. You cut out there, Chris. Yep. The first to arrive is, of course, Damon Hellstrom, the son of Satan.
Which is, it's always great to see Hellstrom arrive with one of these, because he has his chariot, his hellish chariot drawn by the demon horses, flying down out of the sky. I want to see this character in all his glory again.
Yep. One thing I want to point out here, when Damon arrives, and tells Doctor Strange he's answering his summons, he says, "If Patsy and the others are in trouble, how can I turn away?" He doesn't say, "If my friends are in trouble." He says, "If Patsy and the others." So it's very clear that he still harbors romantic feelings for Hellcat.
Right. So we're going to get a lot more of that soon.
Yes, we are.
And this is the changed son of Satan. He's now sort of feels like he's mostly cleansed himself of his dark soul, which is not true, but he's feeling pretty good. We cut to the Beast with his girlfriend Vera, recently rescued by the Defenders and healed by Damon Hellstrom. And they're having a romantic moment, but Doctor Strange, he says he's got to go see Doctor Strange. Doc went on a limb to help us, so I've got to go. So he says farewell, and on the way there, he almost smashes into Daredevil.
That's right.
I love this moment because he said, "Oh, it's you, Daredevil. How you doing?"
Yep, there's no obligatory Marvel fight. They know each other. "Hey, how you doing, buddy?"
Yeah, how you doing? And it's literally, "Oh, Daredevil, how you doing?" I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see that happen in the Netflix series at some point, Some character that, we haven't seen before shows up and they just say, "Hey, man, Moon Knight, how you doing?" Anyway.
So they, Doctor Strange, he basically fills everybody in on what's going on, and they take off to confront the Secret Empire in the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, and again, this Colorado Rockies base is going to become important later on as well. Only rereading these do I realize how early on so much of this stuff is established. This is 106.
Yep.
Anyway, so we get into the place where August Masters and Kyle Richmond are arguing, and he basically reveals this sphere that he's got them trapped in. We've taken the time with this entire project, and I see no reason to rush now. Basically, Masters is concerned because the last time he tried to screw with Nighthawk, Mindy went crazy and killed a bunch of people with psychic, mind rats or whatever we want to call them. But then they had the other major psi operation that Captain America put down with the help of the Falcon and, ironically, the Beast.
That's right.
Interestingly. So he just recaps the whole history of it.
And he lets Kyle know that in 3 hours, they're going to launch an all-out psychic attack on Russia.
Yeah.
Effectively destroying the brains of every man, woman, and child.
Yep.
With the Soviets out of the way, all other nations will be cowed into submission, and America will rise up unchallenged to lead the world. They're going to make America great again.
And the thing is, you're baiting me. You are baiting me to talk about politics. I'm not going to talk about him right now. It's like you're laying down cheese and I can feel the trap about to snap on my neck. Oh, anyway.
Well, tell us what happens next then. Do our nice segue to the other defenders.
Next, Masters begins tweeting. No, wait. No, that's not what happens. Anyway, and here, Brian, the best line for me in this issue. We turn the page, and it's Hellstrom, Daredevil, Doctor Strange, and the Beast in the Colorado mountains. They're trying to find the entrance into the Secret Empire's base. And the Beast says to Son of Satan, so, I can't even do it. So, Hellstrom, how's that psychosensitive metal in your trident doing? I can't even. I can't. I feel like our wonderful Mark DeMatteis has made a big error here in not saying how's that psychosensitive metal in your nether trident. I feel like
I don't think it would have fit in the word balloon. I
There's
think
an
they had to
edit
cut out
missing there. Anyway, Hellstrom is trying to use the psychosensitive metal of his nether trident to find some trace of the base because, of course, Hellstrom's powers can be used for anything. Let's remember that. And it's not working. So Daredevil just puts his ear to the ground, and with his hypersenses, he actually can hear the hum of the machinery below them. And the Son of Satan burns a hole in the ground with the psychosensitive metal of his nether trident. And they find the metal of the base there, but then they're discovered by guards.
That's right. And here begins my favorite segment in this issue, and one of my favorite Defender segments overall.
You mean the Wizard of Oz scene?
Yes.
It is the Wizard of Oz.
It is. So they overpower the guards, and Doctor Strange uses his magic to disguise them all as guards. The four guards the guards they just overpowered. And they go in, and there's like a roll call with Masters and this captain of the guard, and Beast says to Doctor Strange, Doc, if that head guard knows how to count, we're in very big trouble. And Doctor Strange says, I'm quite aware we are about to be discovered, Beast. We will respond with a frontal attack at the proper. And Beast is like, Doc, I'm in the Defenders now. I have a much better idea.
Yeah. So the captain of the guard starts calling roll, and he says, Wayne, probably an homage to Len Wein. Yo, Burger, here, Kowalski. And the Beast says, right here. And then there's an argument about who is Kowalski.
And folks, if you have the ability, you have to read this issue. Our description is not doing it justice. I mean, it's comedic gold. Beast is like,
hey, wait a darn minute. I'm Kowalski. What's the big idea?
You're Kowalski? Then heavens to Betsy, who am I?
It must be like that Twilight Zone episode. I've been wrenched into a parallel dimension where nobody knows me. My identity's been lost. Oh, sob, the ultimate crisis of modern man has befallen me. Only Hank McCoy could get away with that. Anyway. Yeah. So there you go. And then he reveals himself to be the Beast, and he attacks, and the others slip off. Doctor Strange, uses his magic to persuade some of the guards to do his bidding, but he gets knocked on the head and knocked out.
And then Son of Satan, in another part of the base, he sees Kyle. He tries to draw him aside, and he figures out that Kyle is under some sort of hypnotic trance, and then the guards attack him. Son of Satan reveals himself.
Then it's Daredevil.
Daredevil finds the machine that all the psychics are inside of. Beast joins him. The two of them are confronted by guards, and Daredevil is knocked out.
Yeah, and it's just Beast with the imprisoned Gargoyle, Cap, Hellcat, and Valkyrie. He's trying to figure out how to free them. We cut away to Kyle Richmond having knocked out Doctor Strange.
Right.
And we realize that Kyle has been basically possessed.
Yeah, he's possessed by Mindy and the other telepaths.
Right. By Mindy and the other telepaths, quite like the New Mutant Karma would possess people and make them, and sort of take them over and be in their bodies.
Right.
So it's actually Mindy inside Kyle Richmond who's confronting August Masters finally.
Right. Masters says, I don't know how you did that, Richmond, but it was a stupid move. What do you hope to accomplish here? And Kyle says, I've already accomplished it, Masters. I've set the computers to self-destruct. In 2 minutes, this entire base is going to blow sky high, and your psionic war will never happen. And then the telepaths begin speaking through Kyle. It's a really well-drawn panel. Kyle, not in Nighthawk armor. This is just Kyle Richmond, the man. Doctor Strange lying unconscious between him and Masters, and DeMatteis really accomplishes here. You think back to Nighthawk's first appearance in this book and all the growing that he's done, particularly under DeMatteis's run. This is where it crystallizes right here. This is no longer the Kyle Richmond who feels sorry for himself, the spoiled little rich boy. This is somebody taking a stand.
Yeah, agreed. And it's very interesting. So he says, now it's my turn to explain, Masters. You may have deadened the conscious minds of your telepaths with your machines, but you couldn't dampen their subconscious minds. They linked up with me. Don't you understand? They realize what dangerous weapons they've become, how easily they can be twisted by mentalities like yours. That's why they probed the computers for the destruct sequence. That's why they're going to level this complex. So basically, there's more, but that's basically what's going on here. I will say, by the way, that I would like most of America to wake up to what weapons they can be twisted into. But anyway, you started it. I'm just saying. Doctor Strange comes around. Kyle says, Doc, you've got to get the rest of the Defenders out of here. And in a great moment, he's saying, I'm not trying to be a hero, Doc, but I don't want you and the other Defenders to get caught up in what's about to happen here. Doctor Strange says no. And Kyle blasts him out of the room with this psychic blast from the powers he's using. And he says, goodbye, Doc. You were a good friend, and I love you for that. And so that's right. Again, that's a step not only for Kyle, but for, non-toxic masculinity in 1980s Marvel Comics.
Oh, absolutely. We then see outside, Gargoyle, Cap, Beast, Hellcat, Valkyrie, Daredevil, Son of Satan. They're all watching as Doctor Strange tries to concentrate to teleport Kyle out of there. The destruct sequence finishes its countdown, and whoom, the base is level. Doctor Strange gets everybody out except Kyle. Hellcat asks him, Doc, where's Kyle? The face, normally serene, is tense, ashen. The lips that so adroitly weave spells can find no words. Then at last, the tears begin to fall.
Doctor Strange weeps.
And Kyle Richmond, a.k.a. Nighthawk, is very, very dead.
Indeed. I feel like we should play taps right now.
I feel like we should too. Now I'm not up on current Marvel. But I believe this iteration of Kyle Richmond is in fact still dead, correct? There's something that's going to happen in later issues of Defenders that I don't want to spoil here. And I know we have the J. Michael Straczynski version of Kyle Richmond, but I believe that this is where we bid farewell to this incarnation of Nighthawk.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he comes back. I think he does though. No, I'm thinking about it now. I think he does, but we'll have to look that up. Let's see here.
Now, I'm curious. Reading this as a teenager, you were the same age as me. Did this affect you at the time?
Oh yeah, I was definitely bummed. I mean, especially because he was a character who I always thought was really interesting because of his humanity. He was the most ordinary of them. So I will say, yes, he is alive. There was a 3-issue miniseries published in 1998. He was in a coma and brain dead. Through supernatural means, he's revived and resumes his crime-fighting career. He co-starred in the 12-issue run of The Defenders Volume 2 in 2001-2002, and the miniseries The Order in 2002. Later appeared in New Thunderbolts, Civil War, Avengers: The Initiative.
Okay.
He formed a short-lived version of the Defenders with Colossus, the Blazing Skull, and She-Hulk as part of the Initiative in The Last Defenders in 2008. So there you go.
All right. But for this run of the Defenders, that's the last we see of Kyle Richmond, a.k.a. Nighthawk.
Yes, indeed.
I remember this death did not impact me as much as the death we're going to have in the next issue, and I guess our next episode, if I'm looking at the time here.
I agree. Well, we're only 40 minutes in. We can definitely cover 107.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then because here comes, for me as a teenager, more shocking than the death of Phoenix in X-Men 137, more shocking than the death of Elektra in the pages of Daredevil. This is the Marvel superhero death of the 80s that fucked me up.
Yeah. Okay. Death stalks the Defenders with another great cover, and a great splash page to open because it's there. We pick up exactly where we left off in the aftermath, with Daredevil, Son of Satan, Captain America, Doctor Strange, Hellcat, Gargoyle, Valkyrie, and Beast. In the aftermath of the death of Nighthawk, and some of them they're just learning that Nighthawk is dead.
Right.
And now we're back to, we have DeMatteis on writing, Don Perlin on breakdowns. The finishes are by Esposito, Stone, Trapani, and Milgram. So still a team effort here. I think, Brian, let me just ask a strange tangent here. Do you think, can we officially consider Captain America a Defender at this point?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure about that, but okay.
I mean, he's appeared in the book before during the Avengers Defenders War. He appears here. He works with them. Yeah, I mean, based on the concept of the non-team, sure. He's a Defender.
Cool. Well, so I'm with you on the death you were referring to because it happens in such a grim and real way. So to sum up, basically, Doctor Strange is giving a speech about Kyle's death and what he sacrificed and his humanity. And then Captain America gives a shorter speech about, through all the long years that he's seen, death never comes easy, freedom never comes easy, death is never fair. And Hellcat actually gets angry. She says, Bull, you're so good at tossing off these little speeches, Cap, but they don't mean a blasted thing. We're talking about Nighthawk, a defender, a friend, not some faceless soldier on a battlefield. And then Damon starts talking to her. And she didn't even realize he was there. So
exactly.
She runs to him. Damon, you're back. You're back. I don't know how. I don't know why, but you're back. The Son of Satan is stiff, hesitant, despite the fires of love clearly burning in his eyes. So now we've confirmed that Damon Hellstrom is still in love with Patsy Walker.
Exactly.
And that it's real. And he says, and this is a very different Son of Satan, how I returned from my father's dark domain you will learn in time, Patsy, but what's important now is you, and the bitterness I sense already growing in your heart. So he's basically trying to comfort her to keep her from going down a darker path.
That's right. And, Doctor Strange agrees with him. And he tells Hellcat, we'll tell ourselves that Kyle's death had meaning. We'll curse ourselves for not finding a way to save him, and we'll go on. Excuse me, I didn't sneeze into the microphone there. So the Defenders, they start to move on, go home, so as Gargoyle says, so that they can mourn. One of them stays behind, the Valkyrie, immortal of Asgard, Lord Odin's hand-picked chooser of the slain. She's standing there by herself. She has seen death's grisly face innumerable times, but never has it touched her as it has today.
Indeed. I'm going to let you go because I know you.
Okay.
Yep.
And then what we see is a manhole cover open, and one of August Master's Secret Empire goons crawls out. He's got a gun with him. And he says, oh, hey, there's one of those costume maniacs that wrecked our operation. I'm going to make him pay. And we have this fantastically rendered page. We see Valkyrie crying. The goddess's tears fall. This goon fires his gun. The miniature missile flies. The defenders turn. Too late. We see Valkyrie basically take a point-blank shot to the back of the head.
In the back.
Yep.
That's the key element for me. Like, this is about the insanity of real violence. That's why this, I think, hits so much worse, because the base blows up and Nighthawk's in it. Very sad. I was bummed about that, but you're not shocked by it. Whereas this one, you're just like, it's just too human, Right.
And you see in the aftermath, as Beast, launches himself at this guy, you see Valkyrie's corpse laying there, just blown up and smoking and on fire. And, Beast makes short work of the goon. He turns around and he asks, how is she, guys? Is she? And there's this beautiful panel, Gargoyle, Hellcat, Doc Strange, Cap, Daredevil, Son of Satan. No dialogue, no word balloons, just absolute horror on their expressions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty grim. And Hellcat falls to her knees and she's screaming no. And we cut back to the 3-story brownstone that Kyle Richmond had recently bought for Valkyrie, Hellcat, and Gargoyle for them to live in. It's supposed to be a place of joy, a home meant for 3 homeless defenders, it says. But now it seems like a tomb. So Dolly, Patsy's housekeeper, is trying to get them to eat something Patsy can't eat. So in the room are Gargoyle, Damon Hellstrom, Patsy, Dolly, Beast, and his girlfriend Vera. Beast is sad. He's saying, here I get you back from the brink of death, and life seems like a miracle. Then something like this happens, and I feel lousy. What's interesting is, again, like, now this issue is supposed to be about mourning, but it's also pretty complex. This is, I think, also the first time that Isaac, Gargoyle, calls Patsy Patsy rather than Miss Walker.
Right.
So what started as a very hostile relationship now has a certain warmth to it. But she yells at him, "Shut up, Isaac." I said, "Shut up." She doesn't want to listen. Save your nonsense. What kind of universe is this anyway, that can allow demons to run free and ruin people's lives and then take 2 souls as good as Kyle and Val? Yeah. So Hank starts in.
And I'm going to let you read it. But I want to point out what Perlin does here with these pages or these panels where Hank is talking. Notice there's no background.
Yeah.
The only image is the Beast himself and the word balloons. And I think that visually that gives it a lot of extra impact. But go ahead.
Yep. Well, he says, "I understand what you're feeling, and you're absolutely right. Sometimes life isn't fair at all. People we care about deeply are snatched away with no rhyme, no reason, and it's all we can do to keep from going mad. But we can't give in to despair. We can't say that it's all meaningless, because even if it is, what good does it do us? We owe it to ourselves to have hope, to love, to keep going, to help one another. It's when we stop doing that life truly loses its meaning." And Hellstrom gets in. He starts trying to comfort her as well. And interestingly, going back to that moment where Satan revealed himself to be another aspect, presumably, of God.
Right. And Hellstrom points that out. He reminds her, hey, we've fought the devil. If the devil exists, then, there must be a counterpart. And if there is a counterpart, then we know that Val and Kyle are all right.
Yeah. What's really interesting, too, this made me think of, people ask me all the time about writing horror and writing demons and all this kind of stuff. And I'm agnostic. But I've been asked so many times why people like these things. Why do people like these stories? And I always say, if you can believe, if I can make you believe, even for 5 seconds, that, demons exist, that evil exists on this level, then you have to also believe, or that ghosts exist. You have to also believe in that 5 seconds that angels are possible, that spirits are possible, that the soul is possible. And while I'm agnostic myself, I think that that's a function of why people like the supernatural stories the way that they do, whether they consciously are aware of that or not.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange then offers his perspective. He talks about the death of his beloved mentor, the Ancient One, and how he believed unshakably in the inviolability of the soul, in the reality of reincarnation. So we get a lot of different perspectives on death and mourning here, channeled through these costume superheroes. And again, I can't stress enough, folks, you didn't see things like this in comic books at the time. This is groundbreaking stuff right here.
Right. As far as the normal human mourning that we're seeing.
Right.
So Hellcat can't go and say goodbye to them right now. So she sort of abandons the Defenders at the moment. And then we're in a verdant glade in upstate New York, where the heroes have come together. Doctor Strange is creating a sort of eternal flame to burn in their memory. And as they're gathered, the heroes we've already discussed, they're joined by others who want to pay tribute to Valkyrie and to Nighthawk, Thor, Spider-Man, Hawkeye, Luke Cage, the Submariner, and the Silver Surfer all arrive. And this is, again, such a great moment in this comic, Brian.
Oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Son of Satan asks, are we ready to begin? And Gargoyle points out, nope, there's someone else coming. Some giant bouncing across the countryside. Cap says, only one being alive can take mile-long leaps like that. It must be the Hulk, who lands in the middle of the funeral procession. And Hawkeye, who, remember, is in fact a Defender, but it's been a long time since he was in this book. He says, are you guys off your rockers bringing that green-skinned lunatic here? What are you trying to do, Doc? Get more of us killed? Doctor Strange says, the Hulk is a Defender, Hawkeye. More than that, Valkyrie and Nighthawk were his friends. He loved them, as you can surely see. And then we get a panel. Hulk is not smashing. Hulk is not raging. Hulk is grief-stricken and crying.
Yeah, it's a great panel because you have that in his own way. The Hulk loved them, and the caption, as you can surely see, and we see the Hulk like that. It's very sad, actually.
It is.
It's very effective. And then the next splash page, this great splash page. Hawkeye steps back, silenced by the eloquence of the Jade Giant's tears. One by one, heads bow, eyes close. One by one, these unique beings turn their thoughts inward, seeking comfort, offering prayers, stilling turbulent thoughts. Then glazed eyes reopen, and the shared grief of a god, a mystic, and a child of Hades roars skyward. So we've got this splash page of Doctor Strange pouring his power into this sort of eternal flame, Thor using his hammer to summon the lightning, the storm, Hellstrom holding his trident up in both hands and shooting hellfire skyward, and all of the other sort of Defenders and friends gathered around watching this spectacle. Yeah, it's a pretty effective. I mean, this issue is great.
It is, and there's a nice little touch there in the art. You notice Daredevil, who of course has super hearing, super senses, covering his ears.
Yeah. Yep, great.
Yep.
So go in, and then the issue takes a really interesting turn.
Yes, it does. We return to Patsy, who's writing in her diary. That's how she's dealing with the death of her friend. And then all of a sudden the lights go out, and a ghostly voice howls, Patsy! And she is confronted by what, Chris?
The ghost of Valkyrie. And so perhaps unlike Nighthawk, we don't even have to wait the rest of this issue to find out what happened to Valkyrie. It's a great moment of fear. Hellcat says, you can't be here. You're dead. Keep away from me. She's terrified. She trips over a suitcase. And then we see that the ghost of Valkyrie is actually crying.
Yep.
And then the ghost simply fades. Hellcat wonders if she's losing her mind. We go to an interlude in Asgard.
Between the Enchantress and Carnilla, Queen of the Norns.
The Enchantress... So the Enchantress is in many ways reminds me of a character on like Pretty Little Liars or
Oh, very much so.
where she's this sexy sort of sultry character, mischievous, who's always got an attitude, and it's like that you can't trust her. Again, like Loki. Again, like you can't trust her. So she comes in, and Carnilla is like, basically, whatever you want, I'm not going to give it to you. And then the Enchantress decides she's going to be more honest. She needs the help of Carnilla to find something called the Rose of Purity.
Right.
She won't tell her why she needs it. And so Carnilla says, basically, no, I'm not going to help you. Go away. But the Enchantress actually says, please. And she can see that there's real humility in this. So she does say she will help her find the Rose of Purity. The Enchantress goes in to try to find it. And she goes to this peaceful glade where an auburn-haired robed figure stands waiting. And she says, soon, beloved, soon I shall have what I need, and thou shalt be mine.
That's right.
All right.
And then the interlude ends. And we cut back to Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum, where everybody from the funeral has gathered, and Patsy is telling them, what she saw. Gargoyle tells her, sometimes the mind can play tricks on us, especially when we're under pressure. And Patsy says, maybe do you think I just whipped up a handy hallucination? And Hulk grabs Hellcat, lifts her up, and says, don't listen to silly man with wings, because Hulk hasn't thought up a nickname yet for Gargoyle.
Right.
If Cat Girl says she saw Sword Girl, then Hulk believes her. And I am so happy to see Hulk back in the pages.
I know. It really, this version of Hulk is always such a pleasure. But anyway, so not only does Hulk believe her, but all of a sudden they're all forced to believe her because the ghost of Valkyrie appears before them all.
That's right. It is Sword Girl, but Hulk can see through her. How?
Which leads Damon Hellstrom and Doctor Strange to conduct a seance. which is, again, something I never thought I would see. It's Vera, the Beast, Spider-Man, Namor, the Hulk, Hellcat, Damon Hellstrom, Doctor Strange, and Gargoyle around Valkyrie's sword Dragonfang at a round table conducting a seance, and nothing is more 80s comics than that panel.
And again, the subtleties in the artwork. There's while Damon Hellstrom is holding forth and talking about what they're going to do, there's this panel where Namor and the Hulk are looking at each other, and there's no dialogue, but
right.
Their expressions are clearly, do you believe any of this shit?
Yep. No, it's great. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Valkyrie come forth, and of course she does, and because they're doing the seance, she can speak to them. Thank Odin, you found me, my friends. I've tried to breach the gap between Earth and Limbo, and basically, we'll sum up. Prior to this,
basically we're going to go all the way back to Defenders 4 and Defenders 66 to 68 here.
Exactly. So the spirit of Brunhilde the Valkyrie was trapped in the body of Barbara Norris. And it is Barbara Norris's body that has been killed. But Valkyrie herself, the spirit of Brunhilde the Valkyrie, is not dead. Her body still exists on Asgard. So if they can get her body back, get her spirit reunited with her actual body, she can live again. As she's explaining all of this to them, the sword Dragonfang rises up from the table and sucks her in. So
That's
now
right.
Her soul is merged with Dragonfang.
That's right.
Hulk doesn't understand. First sword acts crazy, now curtains open up by themselves.
And the curtains open up by themselves to reveal the Enchantress in possession of Dragonfang. And she says, remember, the Defenders have fought the Enchantress twice before. And she says, know that if you wish to see Valkyrie alive again, the Defenders shall do my bidding. dun, dun, dun.
There you go. And that is where we leave off. It's a great issue. That's a great issue. It's a great little arc there.
A little bit of everything there. We get, some classic superheroics, but we also get DeMatteis's, where he really shines is the human nature of these characters.
Exactly. And,
Yep.
The thing is, that is what made you care about the characters. Like, that's why I cared about the characters growing up, because we saw humanity in them. We didn't just see them in the superheroics, I don't know. It's very interesting. I mean, I'm curious to see what happens with the movies going forward. If they can keep a sense of humanity in them.
I agree.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, before we go, just want to remind folks, if you enjoy this show, Chris has another show called Three Guys with Beards. I have another show called Horror Show with Brian Keene. And our engineer, Tom Clark, has a show called Necrocasticon. All three of those, along with Defenders Dialogue, are made available every week via the Project Entertainment Network. If you enjoy this show, if you enjoy any of those other shows, support the network. The best way to do that is to give them $1 a month on their Patreon, just $1 a month. You can do that at patreon.com/projectentnet. Or just Google Patron and Project Entertainment Network. You'll find it. And they make us available on iTunes, Android, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, everywhere else.
That's a lot of entertainment for just $1 a month, Brian.
It is. Yeah. Just give them $1 a month. And you not only support our show, but you're supporting our network who make our show available.
Exactly.
So anything else to say, Chris?
Brian, the only other thing I have to say is how much I love recording this show. Excelsior, true believers.
Excelsior. See you next week, folks.
Do you love comic books and consider yourself a die-hard fan? Then you need to listen to Parlapod. We have news, reviews, and interviews with your favorite pros, all while bringing some serious laughs. New episodes drop every Wednesday in time for New Comic Book Day. Parlapod is available on the Project Entertainment Network, all major podcast outlets, and parlapod.com. Tune in and fuel your fandom with Parlapod.
My Favorite Story, a podcast author anthology featuring short fiction from the hosts of the Project Entertainment Network shows Three Guys with Beards, Jim Moore, Jonathan Maybar and Chris Golden,
Tom Clark from Necrocasticon,
Brian Keene of The Horror Show, Chuck Buda, and Armand Rosamilia of the Mando Method,
Mary San Giovanni of Cosmic Shenanigans,
Jay Wilburn from Matters of Faith,
John Urban sick of ink stains,
Biz Zung's Mr. Frank.
Available on Kindle and in paperback and through the Project Entertainment Network store.
www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
This has been an exclusive presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.